This is Mr. Shippey. Mr. Shippey is a longtime resident of Raynham.
Yes.
He is going to talk to you today about his life and about his hobby of woodwork.
Okay. What I was... All right, now everybody listen up. We're going to get this done because we want to get a lot in if we can. There's a lot to go. They wanted me, first of all, what they said I was going to talk about was crafts, so which is fine. All of it goes together. What is a craft? Does anybody know what a craft is? There's a boy with a hand up.
Something that you make like homemade or yourself.
That's a good section of it, but it isn't that. It's any profession that you do well. Teaching school is a craft, believe it or not. Laying brick is a craft. Woodworking is a craft. Anything fits into that category. And I am one of those that grew up with a jackknife in my pocket in the town of Raynham, and I've whittled and carved a lot longer than you want to know. And one of the things that we do is you do what you want to do and what makes you happy and make it a craft, and you will find sometimes it becomes your profession and you end up doing it to earn a living. Now, I don't do this to earn a living. I have done it to earn extra money, but I haven't done it for a living. One of the things that I like to do is to, when I start, oh, whoops, I put it out where I'd have it and now I don't. Well, I have a picture which I'll dig up in a minute of what my daughter does. I have 5 kids, 2 daughters, 3 sons. All of them have hobbies. All of them can do crafts. My second daughter is a costumer. Now, I noticed they had a play set up on the stage, so somebody had to make the costumes for those people. My daughter is a professional costumer. And that was her hobby, as well as ending up sewing. She was taught how to sew by her aunts. And it ended up how she earns her living. And she earns a good living because she's done the Shakespeare Theater in Washington, D.C. She is currently at the Children's Theater in Minneapolis right now, which is one of the largest children's theaters there are going. So you can end up doing anything. My thing is wood. You couldn't tell that, could you? There's no way you would know it. And we end up doing whatever we want to do. I do things just because I want to. I don't need a good reason to have to do a horse. On this particular one, way back, and the catalog tells me approximately when, 1979, I found this catalog, and I found that I could get a book on how to carve a rocking horse and the plans. Now, it takes, you look at it and say, oh, anybody can go do that. Let me give you a clue. When you want to take something from a flat picture and turn it into that, you'll find it's a lot of work. You have to practice and practice and practice. And one of the things I say for practicing was, no matter what I did or what I carved, it was just for the fun of it. One of the things earliest, and this is so small it's hard to show, but these little squares, if you look on it, there's a boat. I lived in Cundy's Harbor, Maine. We summered there for years. And one of the things they had was these old fishing boats that went in and out every day of the harbor. What's that? That's just a little block of wood, right? What do you do with a little block of wood? You don't burn it if you can help it. I mean, most people do. I wouldn't. I save them. And I would carve these little boats on them. And these I could do in 15 minutes, maybe 20 if I really wanted to be special. And then we printed Cundy's Harbor across them, took them down to the local store and sold them for $1.50 a piece. That was a piece of wood that would have been thrown away in most places. And that's why and how you start doing different things. You carve because you want to have a product that people can see. Now, everybody doesn't have to know that it's art. If you do something and you like it, That's all you need to worry about. Don't worry about what the other guy says. It doesn't make any difference. You're the guy that you're going to satisfy first. I can go over on the end and see this little table. Actually, the wood is, this is all hardwood, birch. And I got that from somebody throwing away library shelves. And one of the things, I am also chairman of the Raynham Housing Authority, so I go over there quite a bit. And the ladies are always sewing, making quilts, Afghans, patchwork quilts and things. So they gave me a dare one day, said make a patchwork quilt. So I did. There's all the little pieces put together. And I have in my book all the pictures of how many little pieces there are in here, and you paint them all together and then glue them all back together because they're all cut out on a jigsaw. But it's just something to do. It's a good hobby. I also have one of these that is 4 foot square, approximately the same setup. We've been around and done a lot of things, and one of the things I like, as I say, we lived in Maine, I like boats. I've always liked boats. In Essex, Mass., there is a museum where they show how the old boats were built. And they also have on there a set of drawings and places that you can get a pattern to make the boat. Now, you look at that and say, oh, that's a model, pretty model. Do you know why models were made by craftsmen in the first place? Somebody decided they wanted to make this boat in this shape, with this configuration, this size, this shape. And he makes a model. And the way they make their model is they make it with separate boards. And they just pin them together so that they can take it apart. They can then take that model into their layout shop and on the floor expand it till it's full size. And they lay out every piece of that boat right there, every rib. And the thing about, you want to remember about the Essex boats were made, they didn't use nails. They used wooden pegs to hold the whole thing together. That whole hull was put together without a nail in it. And they're still floating and still working today. So there's so many different angles, so many different things you can think of when you're working with wood. I read about Stephen Douglas, who was a slave, and he was sent by his master to the shipyard that he owned every day. And he figured out that another slave, was carving this piece of wood. And he got it carved, and he marked it L4F, because that was the letters that his master had given him. And he finally figured out that meant larboard side, which is starboard to us, larboard side, fourth rib forward. And he learned that. Then he found out that the other side said S4 forward, starboard side, right and left. He learned those things just by watching somebody carve. And they did all of that with all of the things that they did. And so that there's so many things that go into doing something like this that you can learn from everything you see. I don't care who does what for a craft and for moving things. There's always something you can learn. There's something you can find out about. My wife said, aren't you bringing any tools and show them your chisels? And I said, no, I've got too much other stuff anyway. I did bring one tool. And this is a plane. And I want you to look at it. And stop and think. This plane was made in 1840. This is an antique, genuine antique. And it was made by somebody who made it by hand with the tools he had to do a purpose, to something he could make moldings out of. But he had to make his own tools to do it. Now stop and think of just how much thinking went into something like that and how hard it would be. So these are the things that I like about this stuff. You start thinking and doing things and stuff like that. Other thing I've done, I jump around, but they'll get used to it. I picked up a block of wood. Can you look at it carefully and tell me what it is? Just a minute. Everybody look. What is it? It's supposed to be pretty good too, so I mean, I'm not asking you a blank question. Of course, you don't run. The big problem is most of the kids today play with computers. They don't run around in the woods. This is a lady slipper, right? I got a backyard full of them up the road, but most people don't go out and look at them. See? But that's the thing you can do. And like I said, it doesn't bother me whether you appreciate it or not. I do. And that's the satisfaction you get for being a craftsman, for doing things. How well do you do it? How careful do you do it? And what do you do with it? It's a lifetime. Think of anything. You don't have to do it as a profession. You don't have to do it to earn a living. You can pick anything you want to do a living. 9 out of 10 of you are going to think about doing something with a computer today. One reason is you don't have to do too much physical exercise and a lot of things like that, and there's good money in it, which that's the thing. Not too many are going to plan on being a carpenter. How many have built a house? How many people build houses? I taught at Wentworth Institute for 30-odd years. I taught construction. I didn't teach math, I didn't teach science, and I didn't teach physics. I taught how to use your hands, how to sharpen a chisel, how to sharpen a knife, how to make it cut the way it should cut. And yet I did all this on my own, on the side, because this is what I enjoyed. I enjoy building. And I've built a lot of houses and a lot of homes and things. One of the things, and I can prove it to you, and I am upset because they don't have modern equipment in this school. I have a flash drive in my pocket that has all of my pictures and everything on it, that if we had a projector and could show it, we would. But I also have, and on that projector, I knew I'd find the picture I wanted. On that projector are the pictures in this book, which in a little while we'll have you come up and look at it. And this is a picture of everything I have done. No, my daughter said you're wrong. She said it's only about 80% of what you have done since I started high school in 1940. And I'm still putting stuff in the book of what I make every day or every week. And this has got the things. What I wanted to show you, and I'll let, when you take this, would you please take it by the edges and pass it around. This is a picture of the costumes that my daughter made, which I say why she's a craftsperson. If you want to take it and pass it down one row and then back the other, just take a quick look at it and see what it is. You want to take it? Just hold it by the edges, that's all, and take a look at it. And those are the things, that's one of the things I say. She learned that from her aunt at home, because her aunt sewed all the time. And of course, when our day, sewing was one of those things that they did quite a bit of. I was a twin. I had a twin brother. And I can remember I had an aunt who was a sewer. And she would take, and my mother would take an old overcoat down and say the boys need jackets. And she would take a piece of red yarn and measure my arm, my shoulders, the width and height. And she'd measure it, tie a knot, measure it, tie a knot, hold it up against you, tie a knot. Then she'd take a blue one and do my twin brother. We'd go back 2 weeks later and we'd have new jackets. And she didn't have a sewing machine in those days. It was all done the hard way. So, I mean, the things you can do and learn from people to see to do. Try everything. Don't be bashful about trying something. I get upset with this computer age. I admit that. Excuse my back. But I would rather have kids out in the yard playing. I'd rather have you out building something, doing something with your hands, than just your head. I'm nothing against computers, but I mean, you still have to use these. These are your biggest investment. To prove it, as I said, We had 5 children. And one of the things we did, and I've got a whole mess of pictures, and I'm going to pass them. I please ask you to be very careful because these are what I have. The first one is a picture of all of the children's furniture we've made. When we were growing, when I had 3 and 4 kids at the time, there wasn't a lot of money. I started teaching school at $1,500 a year. A year. Yeah, listen to him laugh. Yeah, think about it. And you have a family. What do? You make all their toys. And these are some of the examples of what we make. Now, this one has a composite, shows everything, and just start it, passing down the line. And these I will pass. There's some extras that have. We had a table and chair set. We had a table and chair set. And we just a quick look and then pass them down. That's it. And then we had, then there's a picture of the individual, there's some on both sides. A picture of chairs on both sides. I have a picture here of the rocking chair. And I have a story to tell about the rocking chair that happened last Sunday. One of my son's babysitters for his kids is married and is going to have a child, and my wife can't get out and do any shopping or anything. She said, "Oh, what are we going to send for a present?" I said, "We'll send her a rocking chair. I got one." I said, "I had one in the basement that I had made just to make one and finished it off and left it there. I think it's been there 6 months or so." They came home from the shower and said, "Could you make 6 more?" And it's one of those things. Of course, one of the reasons I stopped making it is I thought it cost too much money. But it seems that my terms of money and the terms of money today are not the same. They go right ahead and they spend more money than I would ever dream of. So that's part of it. Now, I've talked about the horse, I've talked about the boat, and I've talked about the table. I've also talked about what you can do just for the heck of it, just for the fun of it, just to do it, and things like that. So, now is the time I'm going to ask for some questions. So if anybody's got a question, just stick your hand up and we'll try answering it. Must be somebody with a question. When did I figure out how I liked it? It must have been just before I went to high school. Because when I went to high school, in those days, they had different courses. We had, I went to North Raynham Grammar School, believe it or not. That's when it was a school. And we were shipped to Taunton High School. You go from 8 grades in 4 rooms to Taunton High School. And I went right into the shop, manual training department, between working with my hands and drawing, with mechanical drawing. That's when I really started the big interest. Okay, I'll go to the next one here.
How long did it take you to make that rocking chair?
That horse right there, probably a little less than a year. Probably a little less than a year.
What was your most favorite wood project?
Oh, I haven't shown you that yet. Give me a minute. Yeah. Any other questions down here? Yes, a block of scrap of wood, right. And there's one of the things. People don't understand it. When most people pick up a piece of wood, is it going to fit as a piece of wood that I need to use? I pick up a piece of wood and look at it differently. I want to know what the grain is, where the knots are, which direction, everything. Can I cut it this way? Can I cut it that way? Will it be smooth if I do this, or will it be rough if I do that? And I can pick it up, and it's an automatic thing. It just happens in my hand with the piece of wood.
Do you find the blocks of wood, or do you...
Oh, yeah, well, I've got a basement full of scrap. Everything I make, we don't throw wood away. I don't even let them burn it. So that I have a real basement full of scrap. Somebody asked a question, what was my favorite project? So I guess I'll have to show you. I cannot bring it out. I would love to. but it's a little bit much to do. In fact, I don't think my wife would let me. But here's my favorite project. And I'll start this picture this way, right? Start that one across, and start this one across. This one isn't protected, so just touch the edges on this one. Okay?
How long did that take you to make?
2 years. Yeah, actually, one of the things about it is that you learn as you don't hurry. I did that. I would go downstairs every night after supper, and believe me, people say you're not supposed to do it, but I do have a 12-inch TV down there so I can watch the ball games. And I would go downstairs and quietly sit there and sand, whittle, and shape just a little bit, and then just keep working at it as you go. It's very time-consuming if you get into a big project. And the project about that is, and the thing that I can show you on that, I say I can. What did I do with it? Yeah. One of the things you will discover, and I've had a real love affair with carousel horses. If you get into them, it's a history in itself. You should learn how. There are very, very few drawings or plans of a carousel horse. Just a minute. And I'll tell you why. It's how it was done. They were done in a factory. And you came in, and your job was to carve the horse's head rough, just bandsaw it out of a block of wood, pass it on to somebody else. And his job would be to shape it a little more. And then when they got all together, all the parts had been through this process of everybody doing a leg or a thigh or a body or something like that, and they were finally glued together, then the finished carver would come in and he'd carve the rest of the horse. Somebody else did all, but there were no drawings. The only drawings was somebody painted on the wall above your station what you were supposed to do. So when I was traveling up in New York State, up in Taekwondo or Tawanda, something, I found what was a set of blueprints for a horse. And this is what you start with to make that horse. So to interpret it with wood, physically in 3 dimensions, you see, this is what you come with. And if you look at this, I always say this, I say this in the 3rd grade, usually, but I'll say it here. If you look at this, you'll see I've drawn squares on it. And I did it for a reason. I not only did that horse, but I cut it to half scale and did a plaque on the wall. And I took it from the dimensions from this, but this stuff, that's what you do. Now, these are what things you can do for a hobby, a craft, or anything. Yes, dear? What? That's the full size of the horse. That's how big that horse is. It's a full-size carousel horse. You know, we all know what a carousel is. We should. Merry-go-round, right? And that's what they do with it. So, but that's where it started, and that's what you do. And as I say, this was one of those things that I always wanted to do. You know, it's when I had the badge. I know it was one of those dreams you have. And when I found these, I bought them, and I kept them at home for, it was probably 8 to 10 years before I started making the horse. That I had to think about it and plan it and decide what would be what and how you could do it. So, okay. Any more questions? No, I'm not that good.
Where do you get your scrap from?
Where do I get my scrap from? I have bought most of my pine from Gurney Mills. And scrap is from any project. I mean, if I go to my son's house and he's built something, he's got something to throw away, I take it. And do things like that. Yes, dear? Yes, it's all wood. Just a minute. Let's see if I can prove it to you. I have somewhere in here both sides of this sheet. That's the full size one. It's a wall hanging. It's 4 by 4. And that drawing shows how the pieces are cut in the corner here. You cut them with a jigsaw, take each one and paint it, sand it, get it the way you want it so it'll go back together, and then you have to reassemble it like a big jigsaw puzzle onto another piece of plywood. Right? Okay? That's the way they look when before you put it together. There's 164 pieces in that one that you paint individually. Takes time. It isn't one of those things that rush out. Excuse me?
How long did it take to make the table?
Oh, I can make the table. I can't make the top. I can't do this in the time, but I can make the table in my home, in my shop, in less than a day. Of course, I don't stand up that long anymore, so. Okay, anybody else? Come on, there must be more questions. I thought I brought so much stuff that I couldn't show everybody anything, and yet you're running out of time on me. One of the things, this one I haven't held up, is a portrait. You want to try that sometime? You want to try that sometime? Carving a face in wood, with just out of your head. Just make it up as you go. See, and they come out. Yes, dear. How do I what? I couldn't even get. You sand it. You scrape it. You sand it. One of the things with tools, one of the things that I'm talking about that you have to think about is we're using our hands. We're using our tools. I taught, as I said, I taught construction. I taught a class in woodworking that the average carpenter today couldn't pass. He wouldn't know how, because it's all hand tools. They got to use all power tools. And there are some things power tools can't do. But we used to start with just a block of wood, a rough block, really rough, sawn right up rough. And we used to say P4S and length. Plane 4 sides and cut it to length. And it was 1 by 3 by 12. But it had to be hand planed on all 4 sides, and you planed one side, then you squared the edge, then you gauged the thickness, and then you planed that other side till it was parallel to the first side, right? And then you finished the 4th edge. Most people can't. I always tell a story. I was doing a job in Westwood, Mass. on $1 million house. We were remodeling part of it. And they had a door. It was one of those doors that had no knobs on it. They were just part of the wall where you had to push it just right to open it. Because it stuck, because it was old. And I went in, here's a man who was supposedly a professional carpenter. And he takes a hand plane, and it didn't cut right. So what's he do? He picks up his hammer and taps the end of the blade. Well, of course, I went ballistic. So I said, right now you're going to learn how to plane. I said, stop everything. He said, oh, he said, you can't do it. I said, I'm the boss. And I took the plane all apart, sharpened the blade. Once I sharpened the blade on an oil stone, I went to the back of my arm, and I could shave the hair right off the back of my arm with the plane iron. That's how I knew they were sharp. It's not a trick everybody wants to do. But I could shave the hair off the back of my arm. I put the plane back together. He had the door set up on edge. He had been fighting that thing for a half hour. I took one shaving the whole length of the door with the plane properly set. He'd never learned. He could take his power plane, which he didn't have with him, and do something. But I mean, these are the things that you don't know that take experience. Experience is the word. It's repetition. Do it over and over and over. You're not going to carve something the first day and have everybody know what it is. You might know what it is. But somebody else may look at it and say, I question 2/3 of what I do, the other thing is. And you can have fun with all of this stuff. And this is the thing. I have, this doesn't look like much. It really shouldn't. It's a block print. Anybody ever take a piece of linoleum or a piece of wood and carve on it and then use a brayer and a roller and put color on it, press it, and then press it on a piece of paper and make a picture? That's part of it. If you can do that, you're learning how to use your hands, you're learning how to think. You have to remember it's reverse if you want to make it the right direction and things like that. All of those things have to be done like that. And so that's one of the things. The other one is, I like to copy pictures. Who is he? One of the famous artists. Don't ask me his name right now because I can't think of it. But you say, look at that. It's on a, that looks pretty decent on this. Look at the back of that piece of wood. See, it didn't matter. Didn't matter what you did. These are the things that I try and get people to think about. And people throw so much stuff away today, I go crazy. I think everybody talks about going green, right? Go green. What? How do they tear a house down today? With a bulldozer, right? Isn't that the way? You say, how do you learn your craft? You learn your craft by working from the bottom up. I can remember when we used to go to the beach. We used to go to Mattapoisett in the summer. And the man across the street was an old Cape Codder. And of course, every day he walked the beach, he came home with a board, a 2x4, or something. Nails in it and everything, but he took it all home, put it on his horses, cleaned the nails all out, squared the ends up, and put it in a pile. He built a house in 1946. And of course, he saved all the nails. Because as a kid, your age, I sat there with a piece of railroad track and a hammer and straightened every darn one of those nails. And different size, different shapes, and you did it. And he built a house out of them. And I'll give you a clue. The house sold for $640,000 last year. So these are the things you don't know. I mean, today we're going to tear it down, throw it all away. No, that's not the way it should be. So, I've got you. How long are we doing? How are we doing on time? Does anybody know? I think we've gone over a half hour. I don't want to get in trouble. I usually do. So if you have any other questions, ask them. Oh, I got more over here. Okay. Yes, you dear.
Are you like a good artist?
Am I a good artist? Well, let me put it this way. I took 8 credits in art because when I was teaching, originally started teaching, I had graduated from Wentworth, and they did not have a degree. You didn't need it in those days. But they needed teachers so bad in Maine. I went to Maine and was teaching school. And one of the things they did in Maine, which they don't do anymore in Massachusetts, I don't know about Maine, but they required you at that time to get 6 college credits a year, which the town paid for. So I got my degree working for the state of Maine at no cost other than the time. I had to take art. I had to take 8 credits of art, which did not hurt me. But I could never at that time figure, what do you take art for? To teach building construction. But I did what I was told, and I took 8 credits of art.
When you make like the pictures and stuff, did you just use a knife for it?
Most of the time, you can use anything. You can use a gauge, a gouge, a knife. I pick up anything when I want to do circles and things like that and find a bolt that's the right size and just tap it or do something. You have to learn what you want to do. And it's practice.
How many like crafts do you make?
What?
How many like crafts do you make
I don't do it every day. This is a hobby. This is a part-time thing. And of course, I'm retired. I don't have to.
Have you ever worked with metal?
Very little, but enough so that I found out I didn't like it.
Is that horse made out of some special wood?
The horse? No. I tell you what, I'll give you the wood for that horse. I said, you know, I worked as I taught construction. I worked for carpentry and did everything. I tore down a building one day, a cement block building, and that was what we call sugar pine, very soft pine, had been used as a door jamb. I took it home. That's what the horse is made out of. Yeah.
How long did it take the man to make that house?
Oh, no more than the average guy in those days. It wasn't too long, regular standard sign. We used to do things different, of course. Today they have all electric hammers, electric saws. They buy everything, the studs are all cut to length and everything. The things are so different. Try and remember, in the early 50s, I worked on construction, building houses right in Raynham. And we used to be able to frame it and stand it up in a week, but it took a long time to get the inside finished because you had to get a plumber and a electrician and everybody. It's the coordination that takes the time. You know, they slap a house up in 24 hours today, but they have 150 people working on it. That's the problem. Okay, somebody else had a question, then that's it. What was the first piece I ever made? Oh, Lord. I can't remember that far back.
Do you make your own tools?
No. No, I have a very good collection of tools from the early 40s and 50s that I use. And I also have power tools. I have all the power tools I need. I'm still buying them. I get in trouble for that, too.
So when you carve, you kind of do it the old-fashioned way, not like...
Yep. Although I do have an electric chisel, which was made by Ryobi for a number of years, and then they stopped because they weren't sold. Didn't sell enough of them. Okay, last round.
What was the most recent thing you've done?
I knew somebody would ask that. I made a rose arbor yesterday.
What's the biggest thing you've ever made?
Well, you mean craft-wise?
Yeah.
The horse. Yeah, that's a good size. I think that's about it. Okay? All right?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I hope you enjoyed it.
Okay, now today I brought two books that you might like, but I think one of them I kind of like. I think this one, Grandma Gets Grumpy. Has anyone read this book before?
No.
No? Oh, it's a funny book. It's a fun book. So I will read you the book. Or I can just talk to you and tell you what things were like when I was a little girl. Maybe if we get through the book early, I can talk to you about what things were like when I was your age. Okay? Okay. What we're going to do is we'll read the book first. Okay? Grandma Gets Grumpy. Every time we go to my grandma's house, we stay all night. Mama and Papa sleep on the sofa bed in the living room. I sleep in my sleeping bag on the floor in Grandma's room. Now don't snore, Lassen, Grandma says. I don't snore, you snore, I say. But we are just teasing each other. Grandma plays Go Fish with me and tickles me with her silly goose puppet. Papa says sofas are for sitting on. Mama says stop running in the house. Grandma gives me hugs and says she just has lots of energy, don't you, Lassen? Grandma seemed to let kids get away with a lot of stuff, don't they? Grandma has a box of toys and a whole drawer full of old clothes for playing dress up. She likes kids. Mama says, time to clean up. Papa says, get ready for bed and brush your teeth. Grandma reads me stories and gives me ice cream. I like to stay all night with Grandma. I think Grandma treats her grandkids special. The last time we visited Grandma, Mama and Papa went to a party at Aunt Sue and Uncle Jim's house. Grandma said they had to sleep over there because all my cousins were coming to stay with Grandma and me. Yippee, I said. Not so loud, Lassen, Papa said. Are you sure you want to do this, Mom? Mama asked. Don't worry, Grandma said. I'll get along fine, won't we, Lassen? Aunt Sue brought Brian and Kevin. Here they are, Mom said. Are you sure you want to do this? All the parents are worried that all these kids are going to be too many kids for Grandma. We'll be fine, won't we, boys, Grandma said. She winked at us. Uncle Joe and Aunt Sherry brought Casey and Michelle. Brian and Kevin and Casey and Michelle and I all hugged each other and yelled, hooray, hooray. Quiet down, said Uncle Joe. Be good, said Mama. Do what Grandma tells you, said Aunt Sue. Are you sure you can handle all 5 of them, Mom? Asked Uncle Joe. Sure, Grandma said. You go on and have a good time. We'll be fine. Grandma shooed all the grown-ups out the door and closed the door behind them. She made hot dogs, macaroni and cheese, and green beans for dinner. We like hot dogs, macaroni and cheese, and green beans. Then Brian and Casey and I played Chinese checkers. Kevin and Michelle made a tower of blocks. We made a bigger one, and they both crashed. We made a tower of kids. Kevin got squished because he's too little, and he started crying. Be careful, Grandma said. We zoomed the cars under the sofa. We zoomed ourselves on top of the sofa. Settle down, Grandma said. Someone might get hurt. Wee, Tracy tried. One more zoom. Grandma looked at him, and she wasn't smiling. We settled down. We made roads for cars. We made them go all over the house. Grandma doesn't care if we make a big mess. She likes kids. I put a beautiful dress on to be a princess. Brian was the dad. Casey was the fireman. Michelle got run over by the fireman. I was the doctor and fixed her up. We made a hospital with all the blankets and chairs and pillows. Casey was the ambulance man. Brian was the nurse. Michelle and Kevin were the parents. But they wanted to be doctors too. Grandma looks sick, I said. I think she needs to go to the hospital. We took very good care of Grandma. I guess Grandma played along with them too. Michelle got in Grandma's lap and yawned a big yawn. Then Kevin yawned. Then Grandma yawned. I think it's time to clean up, she said. I think everyone was getting tired. But we're not done playing yet, we said. You can play again tomorrow, said Grandma. How about cleaning this mess up, then reading some stories? We wanted stories, but the mess was big. It was too big to clean up. Let's have stories first and then clean up, I said. Yes, 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 said the other kids. No, Grandma said. The mess gets picked up first. I sat down on the floor for just 1 minute. Lassen's not helping, Brian said. I picked up a car. I am too helping, I said. Good, Grandma said. We need everybody's help. I was getting a big blanket. Casey was getting it too. We fell down on top of each other. I think they're fooling around. Casey and I made a ghost together under the blanket and scared Kevin. Kevin jumped off the sofa. The ghost jumped on the sofa too. Brian climbed on the sofa to save his brother. "Oh," said the ghost. "Ooh." Kevin squealed. "Get back, you old ghost," yelled Brian. Kevin accidentally kicked Michelle. She screamed. "Don't hurt my sister," Casey yelled at Kevin. Brian pushed Casey. "You leave my little brother alone." Casey bumped into me. I bumped into the lamp. Sounds like they were having a big fight there. Oh boy, I wonder what Grandma's gonna say. "Stop," Grandma shouted. We didn't know she could shout. "That is too dangerous and too noisy, and that sofa is for sitting on, not jumping on." We sat on the sofa. Grandma picked up her lamp. "Grandma's getting grumpy," Casey whispered. "She sounds just like my mom," I whispered back. "Mine too," Brian said. "And my dad," said Casey. "Oh, Grandma's must be mad." "You bet I do," Grandma said. "We didn't know she had such good ears." That's because I taught Lassen's mom and Brian's mom and Casey's dad everything they know about being grumpy. So I guess she taught them how to be grumpy. And I'm older, so I've had more practice. Grandma sat in the chair and she looked at us. We looked at her. "What are you going to do now?" Casey said. "I'm going to wait," Grandma said. I guess Grandma's waiting to see what they're going to do. Grandma waited, and we waited too. They just sat and looked at one another. "What are you waiting for?" Brian asked. "I don't know," Grandma said. We didn't know either. You think they might figure out what Grandma was waiting for? What do you think Grandma's waiting for? What?
For them to clean up.
Yeah, that's right. Grandma's giving them that look that they have to clean up. We all waited some more. Waiting was boring. I got up and put away the blanket. Casey put the pillows back on the sofa. Brian and Kevin picked up the dress and clothes. Michelle picked up the cars, and Grandma helped. Casey looked at Brian, and they grinned. Brian looked at me, and I started to giggle. I looked at Kevin and Michelle, and they laughed. Michelle looked at Grandma, and Grandma laughed too. All of us were laughing and putting things away. Grandma wasn't grumpy anymore. Pretty soon, that big mess was all cleaned up and we were eating ice cream. "Now it's time to brush your teeth and get into your pajamas," Grandma said. "Oh no," Casey said, "we aren't tired." I started to say, but Grandma's eyebrows went up. Grandma didn't want to hear them say they weren't tired because I think Grandma must have been tired after taking care of 5 kids. I think I would be tired after taking care of my 5 grandkids. We got our toothbrushes. "Watch this," I said. I squeezed a toothpaste smile on the mirror. "Oh yeah," said Casey. "Make the eyes." Brian shook his head and pointed to the doorway. Grandma did not look happy. Grandma was watching them putting that toothpaste on the mirror. I cleaned off the smile very, very carefully. We all got our pajamas on while Grandma changed the sofa into a bed. We climbed in and Grandma read 3 stories. Then she tucked us in and the silly goose puppet gave us kisses. "Good night, you rascals," Grandma said. Grandma really does like kids, and we like Grandma. Do you like that story? You kids sleep at your grandma's sometimes? What is a favorite thing you like to do? What's a favorite thing you like to do at grandma's? Sleep on the floor? Under her bed. Oh, wow. What do you do?
I like to sleep in my dad's room because I'm related to him.
Oh, okay. And what do you do when you go to grandma's?
Eat fruit up.
Do what?
Eat fruit up.
Oh, okay. What do you do?
I play with my like 3, well, my one sister and my 2 brothers.
What do you do when you go to grandma's?
Eat junk food.
Oh, grandma gives you junk food, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, what do you do?
Play with my cousin.
Okay, do you sleep at your grandma's along with your cousins? And how many of you get? Like in the book? You guys all make a mess?
Yes.
Yeah. What do you do?
Sleep under my bed.
You sleep under the bed? Oh, wow.
I think that's
I
what
never
my
tried
dog
that.
said.
What do you do?
I play with my grandma's dog.
With the dog? Oh. What do you do?
I play with my grandma's bird.
Bird?
Yeah.
One bird or 2?
Yeah, 2 birds.
2 birds. Okay, what do you do?
I play Xbox.
That's good too. What do you do?
I only play random games that I realize. Yeah. Are you serious? Sure.
Now, do your kids, when you go to your grandma's and you make a mess, do you clean up?
Yeah.
Does your grandma get grumpy? Grandma doesn't get grumpy? Does your grandma get grumpy?
No. You do that.
I am your grandma.
I bet you do.
You think I get grumpy?
I don't think so.
You better ask Amanda.
Ooh, shoulders.
You get grumpy.
All night eating junk food.
But I do make you clean up before you go home, don't I? Yes.
Boys and girls, I'd like you guys to share, but one person at a time, so remember to raise your hand, okay?
Okay, you tell me. Does your grandma get grumpy? No? Well, that's good. I guess not too many grandmas get grumpy, but if they do get grumpy for a little while, then after a while, they're not grumpy anymore because I'm sure they love their grandkids. No? You must have a special aunt. Well, you know, sometimes you can have, doesn't have to be a grandma, it can be a person that you like very much, or an aunt, or an uncle. That's special.
It's impossible to kill jokers. Very kind person in the family.
Is that right? When I was a little girl,
Okay, shoulders.
when I was a little girl, my grandma, I used to sleep at my grandma's house too. And sometime my grandma would come to sleep at my house.
My grandma's doing that Saturday.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
My
Yep.
dad's going to farm.
What?
They used to live very far away, so now they live close.
They live close to you now? They what?
So it used to be the attic, but we moved to the house, now my grandparents live there.
So they're really close. That's a lot of fun, isn't it?
Why is it so quiet?
One at a time.
Boys and girls,
One
pay
at a
attention
time.
for 1 second, please.
Okay. Does someone have a favorite story they want to tell me about their grandma? Or somebody special? Okay.
My sister.
Your sister's special? That's nice.
My dad is special.
Your dad is special. Okay. You have a special?
Once my grandma, my grandma's husband, he went to the hospital because he broke his leg.
Oh, wow. That
How
hurts.
did he do that?
Yep. Your friends are special. That's very nice. I'm sure you all have some special friends, huh? Special for you.
My 18-year-old cousin is special.
Your 18-year-old cousin, is that a boy or a girl? Or I bet you, and is he driving now? Wow, yes, he's a teenager, and I bet you can't wait to be like
Boys and girls.
Oh, okay.
One person, please.
One at a time. Okay, tell me. What's that? Your grandma's special? Do you sleep at her house? Very good. Oh, that's nice. Let's give you a chance. Your what? Your dog is special. What kind of dog do you have? Oh, is it big? A big dog? How many of you have a dog?
I have two.
Oh, is that Oh, that's nice. Your dog what? Oh, that's too bad. That's too bad. Yes?
My two birds are special.
Your two birds are special. What color are they?
They're parrots, white
Parrot?
and yellow.
Ah. You know what? I think my time is almost up. Yes.
I used to have fish, and they're special because they two of them grew up in the dark, and the other ones were colorful, and they're my kids.
Oh, okay.
That's a lot. My 15-year-old cousin is special.
Is that right? Does your cousin live near you?
No, she lives all the way in Cape Cod.
Well, it's not too far.
Japan.
Not too far.
New York. Japan is on the other side of the world. Every winter. China's not a yeah, grandma. They can walk on her.
Comes back.
They can on one of the photos. Anthony forfeited.
I had a great time. I hope you kids enjoyed this book. And remember, when you go to your grandma's or your aunties or your uncles or even your mom and dad and you make a mess, you gotta clean up. Right? Yeah, that's a big help when you clean up.
What do you guys say?
Thank you, Mrs. Sullivan.
You're welcome. I really enjoyed this. I always have fun coming to speak to you kids.
Nathan.
And maybe Amanda can help pass out. Is Amanda going to help pass out what you got?
Nathan.
You can go see on.
Well,
Well, thank you. I had a very good audience here.